Hello everybody, this is Leo Volont with part 7 of my series. Let me read you the chapter heading from the blog. Part 7, Jesus the Jew versus Christianity. Not the Messiah, or did Jesus simply quit? If he quit, why? Anyway, let's bring this discussion back to Jesus. Was he the intended Messiah? Well, in evaluating him, we would need to identify whether it seemed like he had the kind of messianic angelic support that would be actively pushing him into a messianic mission. Here the evidence is mixed. There seems no dispute that there were ministering angels committed to protecting Jesus from harm, and the kind of angels who provided for healing the sick and materializing up fishes and loaves and wine at weddings and such. But we would expect that kind of thing from any first-rate saint. But Jesus appears to have thought himself on a messianic mission. But reservations regarding messianic ambitions of Jesus must certainly arise only because his mission failed. But even that is confused, because it is not as though Jesus died trying. He may have died only because he stopped trying. You see, Jesus flatly quit, and as will be covered below, leaving his angels high and dry, and so it may have been a fact that they were indeed messianic angels, but that Jesus had been a flawed messianic candidate. Well then, why did they pick him? Couldn't they see he was unreliable? Well, yeah, and that's an interesting question. And I guess that the answer for it was that the time for the Messiah had come. The stars were set in the sky, and a choice had to be made now. Looking down, the angels saw that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus were the best stock they could possibly find to work with. Jesus apparently looked perfect enough. Even in heaven, perhaps it's true that the show must go on. We can read in the Gospels that Jesus resigned the Messiah in the Garden of Gethsemane on the eve of the crucifixion. We have the quote right here. It's, "Father, take back this cup that thou hast given me. I quit." My hunch about all this is that Jesus had come to Jerusalem thinking that he would not only have overwhelming public support for his campaign to be recognized Messiah, but that the temple community and the intelligentsia would also rally to his cause. Apparently, Jesus had every power but that of prophecy. Anyway, after his arrival in town, things began going badly for him right from the start. And really, it was his own fault, or it seemed that way. His first stop was at the temple grounds, where he tore up the temple's commercial courtyard, causing havoc with all the gift shop kiosks flipping over money tables. Well, yes, we hear of people having a big problem mixing spirituality with money, myself being one of the foremost. But these vendors were licensed by the temple, and the license fees were used to defray temple salaries and used for schools and clinics and stuff like that. They were just harmless gift shops. You know, some temple memento bought to please one's aunt back home is not to be classified in the same category as some New Age pack of lies book that had been written to the specifications of a publishing house consumer survey to give people exactly what it is they wish were true. I hate spiritual exploitation for money. But a trinket is a trinket. What you see is what you get, and I'm fine with that. But back to this temple yard fiasco. We were told by his own people that Jesus actually chased the vendors around with a whip. This frenzied tantrum of an out-of-control Jesus did not play well with the public or with the powers that be. And Jesus found he had only turned possible friends into implacable foes. Hey, is anybody else thinking that this isn't the Jesus we all know and love? It seems that something was uncharacteristically wrong with Jesus at this point. You see, just before entering town, we have the story of Jesus coming across the fig tree. But figs were out of season, but Jesus got into such a fit of blind rage that he blasted the tree, killed it dead. All the leaves shriveled to brown in an instant. He was here demonstrating a mean streak of intense irritability that we had never seen in him before. And he was still under the same dark influence when he reached the temple and had his angry fit there. Anyway, this temple debacle dropped Jesus into a state of confusion and uncertainty. If he really had been intended to become the Messiah, then Jesus would come to make the decision that would set civilization back for thousands of years and still counting. What could possibly have discouraged him so much that he would simply abandon the fate of the Jews and even all of humanity? Well, let's look. Whatever fever had stricken him on the day he entered Jerusalem, which incidentally must have overwhelmed the protection of his retinue of protective angels, and therefore must have been the projection of a consolidated and determined dark side, well, this fever receded. But it receded, probably leaving a residue of humiliation and shame. Is it possible that this is the first time in his life that Jesus made a mistake in public that he would have to live down, and he simply had no practice in knowing how something like that worked? Or did he believe he was no longer worthy because of one bad day? Or maybe he had presumed that the Messianic campaign would all be easy. Maybe he did realize that his wild psychological swing was the product of a dark side attack, and he lost trust in himself, and with his angel's ability to protect him. But then there was the human social element. You know, he had been used to the wild acclaim of the uneducated and impressionable country bumpkins back in the hills of Galilee. The occasional stone-faced Pharisee or Sadducee should have tipped him off that Jerusalem would be a harder room to play to. So his lukewarm to hostile reception there must have demoralized him to the bone. And combined with all those possibilities, well, maybe Jesus didn't have a plan B should his plan A fizzle. So yes, Jesus had many reasons for why he may have been so discouraged that he would want to toss in the towel and quit. But really, all he would have needed to do was just ride it out. He had angelic protection and angelic access to supernatural phenomena, and so what more did he really need? The plan would have been able to write itself. He could have simply but unobtrusively and without a hint of threat declared himself Messiah, just like any harmless crackpot would have done, and then rent a small storefront office within a city block of the temple grounds and hang out a shingle saying, Messiah, religious, spiritual, personal advice, and light carpentry. And then settled in for the long haul of building public consensus where he could focus simply on making more friends than enemies and learning from experience how one goes about living down an embarrassing faux pas. Certainly, given his good character and continued angelic support, his stature as Messiah would have steadily grown up into something substantial. If his social administrative initiatives worked in Judea, then they would have been the model for other societies in much the same way that Persian Zoroastrianism had transformed post-captivity Judaic thought and caused the first stirrings of moral thought even amongst the Greeks. It's really a shame we never found out how Jesus had planned to translate his social moral vision into institutionalized administrative policies and how he would have set up bureaucracies and leadership structures. After all, even as a successful Messiah who would not have lived forever, and any lasting legacy for the world could only have been in the institutions he had established. Oh, despite the still reverberating tragic consequences of Jesus chucking the mantle, the I Quit episode does in fact give us a better idea that Jesus did in fact have the kind of angelic protection that would have been granted a Messiah. We only need to look at the before and after pictures. The very moment he quit, the angels abandoned him on the spot. The Roman police, within minutes, more than likely tipped off by the angels themselves. You know, angels are not the most sentimental of creatures. So yeah, the police found him on the hill, arrested him, and it was non-stop beatings, humiliations, and tortures for the next 15 hours until he was dead on the cross. This followed a life of 33 years in which the angels so insulated him from harm that he never once even stubbed a toe. I can imagine Jesus inquiring of one of the court clerks in preparation for his trial. I have this intensely uncomfortable feeling all over, and I have no idea on earth what it could possibly be. You mean pain? Anyway, let's go on to the next one. Thank you.